Hey guys, I'm Alfred. Some of you may know me from this idol survival reality program called We Are Young, 少年之名.
大家好，我是来自新加坡的 Alfred， 孙英豪。
It is similar to your Produce 101, Idol Producer, Youth With You, Chuang. Honestly, it's always been a dream of mine since I saw the first Produce 101 in Korea. And I always just envisioned myself being able to stand on a huge stage like that, performing, being in an environment where I'm forced to grow with like people with the same passion. I was really happy to be able to be part of this show. One of the most asked questions is how did I get to audition for the show? In 2019, I saw the opportunity online, and then I submitted my audition tape, and I came in first place. So I actually got to represent Singapore to go on the show. The team in China sent me this song 2 months before I flew to China and told me that is going to be my song and performance for the first stage in the show. And I actually didn't have a say in the style and the concept that I was going to perform in. So they basically put a few of us that they thought would look good together in a team. Actually had 2 months to prepare for this 1.5 minute performance. One of the things I found was really interesting was that we weren't allowed to interact or see any other contestants and trainees in the show. The reason that they gave for us to not interact with each other was that they wanted us to maintain that element of surprise. One of the most challenging things I faced when I first went there was the food, because I'm a very, very fussy eater. I don't take spicy food, I don't take vegetables. And because they were pretty strict with our diet, and we also had to step on the weighing scale every morning before training, so they were taking records of our weight to make sure that we maintain a certain standard of body weight. Because of how intense the training was, and because of how fussy I was with the food, and we had 0 sugar intake, so I actually lost 7 kg within a month, and I was weighing 47 kg at my lowest. I think that the standard of beauty in China is definitely a bit different. We had to prepare these solo acts, one singing and one dancing. They would actually go to individual trainees to tell them you have to prepare more on your dance individual act because certain judge would be cueing you to showcase that performance. I think at that point it kind of became obvious which are the trainees and the contestants that would get a lot of screen time and would actually go pretty far in the show. So one day, unannounced, they came to our room and confiscated all of our electronic devices. So they took away my handphone and my laptop. And to be honest, it's something that I anticipated and knew of before going there. So I prepared a spare phone, which was after that found by them and confiscated as well. They wanted us to fully focus on training. Another reason, I think more importantly, was to protect the mental health of the trainees. And very often I'll use the reason of having to contact my family as a reason to get my phone back. To be very honest, whenever we get our phones, the first thing that we do, other than contacting our family, is that we'll go online on forums and different social media platforms to type in our name and see the results. It is kind of a way for us to gauge what does the public audience think of us and the way that people has been viewing us. I would have to admit that in a way or another, these comments do get to us, and they do affect like our mental state and like our confidence especially. So I do see a fair and valid point in confiscating our electronic devices. One of the questions that I got asked most about was about the theme song. For the theme song, we actually had 10 days to learn the choreography and the song. So we were divided into 4 different classes to learn theme song, and in my class there were about 25 to 30 of us. So after 10 days of practicing for the choreography for the theme song, that was when we kind of went into the actual part of the competition. So that was the time where we finally got to meet all the other trainees that was in the show. The MV filming for the theme song was spread out in 3 days, and each day lasted for about at least 14 hours, sometimes even 18 hours. It was a really, really tiring process, like tiring 3 days, because we only get like 3 to 4 hours sleep a day. We take them by segment. So for each take, we could be only doing the chorus or from the intro all the way to the first chorus. And when it finished, we get 5 minutes to rest and just touch up our makeup, and then we go for another take. As an individual trainee with no company backing, I'm really happy that I got positioned in the A zone, because most of those people there either had previous experiences or are from big companies, and some of them are even debutant artists. But I feel like that 3 days filming for MV is one of the things that I enjoyed and was most memorable for me throughout the whole 6 months. There was this very infectious energy that bounced off everyone, standing on such a huge stage with these amazing lightings and expensive set. You know, even until today, sometimes I get goosebumps thinking of that moment, and that feeling is just really very overwhelming. Yeah. And I remember the first take that we went for when the confetti came down, I teared because really happy with where I was, because in the past I've always looked at Produce 101's MV and envisioned myself, dreamed of myself being in that position, and always hoped for that to happen, and standing on the stage doing that, it's just a feeling that I live for. I can't even describe. It's just something that best feeling that I've ever had. Another thing I found challenging was the fact that everything was moving very fast. So when there were eliminations, when my friends were eliminated, you don't really have time to process or grieve, because the very next moment you are up for a new mission, and most of the time we have no idea what the next mission is going to be. You just have to learn to adapt really quickly, because the cameras are rolling 24/7. I think one of the most challenging thing was that you kind of have to be on your toes 24/7. There are things that you might not want to be captured, because you never know when the editor is going to use it and portray you in a different light than what was actually happening. So that was something that I was definitely aware and very concerned of. That kind of brought a lot of stress to me, because even at times where I feel helpless or really just frustrated, there were no outlet for me to vent it. I just had to internalize it. To be honest, I've cried so much on the show. It's something that I've always tried to not do in front of cameras, because I didn't want the editors to portray me as someone that has a sad story, because I always think that me being able to get so close to my dream is something that I'm very, very thankful for. And the last thing I wanted was to portray myself as someone sad, or for people to sympathize with me. Very often, actually, I go back to my room, and then when I'm showering, I would cry, because that is kind of the only time that you're just alone with yourself, with no cameras, with nothing, that you can just really be bare and let your emotions truly flow. So I've grown to just internalize all these emotions and kept it to myself, which I felt kind of affected my mental state a little bit. To be honest, one of the things that I felt very defeated by at some point was not having the ability to showcase what I truly wanted to. All of our performance at every stage, in a way or another, linked to our votes. And when you don't get as much votes as you like, you don't get the privilege to select the songs that you want to showcase. It kind of feels like no matter how much I work, or how hard I try, or how much I want to showcase what I'm actually able to do, I'm held back. And it's something that is not within my control. But on the bright side, I think it was actually a blessing in disguise, because I actually get to experience something that I would otherwise not have chose. Because I actually consider myself a dance musician, but I never got to really showcase dance, and somehow always end up in the vocal position. I was able to push myself and really get out of my comfort zone, and that's something that I'm pretty thankful for. Another really unhealthy thing that I did was that I actually starved myself for 4 days before this public performance. And I was actually inspired by one of my teammates, who shall not be named. The only thing I had in the 4 days was just water and a bar of Snickers. I was actually really happy with the results that I saw, but I highly do not encourage this because I now realize how unhealthy that was. Each time when we have to go for a performance, we have about 7 to 10 days to prepare, and this 7 days is extremely exhausting and hectic. Everything is just back to back, and the performance that is put out that you see are actually a collage of like different days and including our rehearsals and different takes from the actual performance. As for the focus camp, they are actually a separate performance from the actual performance itself. One question that came up a lot was how scripted are shows like that. The thing about reality TVs is that the producers and scriptwriters do have certain things that they would tell you or prompt and encourage you to say, but they are not scripted in that sense. So for instance, during one of the episodes where the scriptwriter felt that the theme for that episode blends in well with my character on the show, then they will kind of give you a heads up, and the kind of questions that they lay in front of you during the interview is kind of driving towards the theme that they want to achieve. So they may ask you questions that is a bit different from what they would ask the rest of the contestants for that episode. So for competitions like this, I've realized that there is always the character that has no experience but gradually improves, and it is pretty apparent which contestant actually have such script or we call it 人设, like character. So I would say the script that I had that the producers wanted to portray me was I was the oldest contestant in the show, which is why it was constantly brought up in the show.
他是今天在这里可能年纪最大的29岁，他其实也徘徊了很多次，要不要放弃？因为29岁的年纪，外界的声音太大了。
And even the questions that I was asked during interview are often questions that are involving my age. Well, honestly, I've heard things about producers telling certain trainees what to say or what to do, but that goes beyond my knowledge, and I don't think it's my position to share it. So that is as far as scripting goes in the show, I think. I just want to take this chance to answer some of the questions that I received from you guys. Did you ever feel like you hit breaking point and wanted to quit the show? Honestly, no. There were a lot of times where I felt very defeated and overwhelmed by stress, but there was not one moment where I felt like I wanted to drop everything that I had and quit the show, because if anything, I was just really thankful for that opportunity and just being there. I know that when all this ends, that experience is something that I would hold so closely to my heart, and something that I might never ever be able to go through or feel again. So there is not one moment that I wanted to quit. Yeah. How often was everyone not aware of formats? It sounds like rules were changed at the last minute. I would say 90% of the times we were not aware of the format or the rules, because even our day-to-day schedule, we won't know what time to wake up the next day. We won't know what classes are we having. We won't know even the schedule for the next day. We will only be informed maybe 30 minutes before the call time. So it could be in the morning, 8 a.m. the manager would knock on our doors, and then we have 30 minutes to prepare, and then we go and start the day. So we won't even know what time the day will end. Given that many trainees came from other popular shows, has it bothered you, and how you pressed on? For sure, I think when I first met the other trainees, or during the first 2 months in the training camp, we kind of have an idea of who the other contestants were, and more than half of the trainees were popular trainees or people with experience. So I think I was pretty intimidated for a bit. But once the competition started, it didn't really bother me that much anymore. Yep. Outside of preparing for stages, did everyone have time to mingle and hang out? Not really, because most of the time we are just in our studio. So our life for the 6 months is just to and fro from the studio and back to the hotel. So the only time you get to so-called hang out and mingle is in the hotel. But when we get back to the hotel, we are just tired and exhausted. So most of the time we just go to bed. But there are definitely times where the schedule is not as tight. So we do go to each other's room and just, chat and just, hang out. Do you recommend us joining survival shows? Personally, for me, I think it was a really good experience, and if I could do it all over, I would. Therefore, I would recommend anyone that has interest in this field to audition for it. But I think you have to be mentally and physically prepared and be well informed enough before taking part in this kind of show formats. Yeah. How do you feel about the unbalanced screen time among different trainees? I think that is something that is inevitable because, like any other TV shows or reality programs, there will be a hero character and there will be people that has more screen time. I think one thing that was quite demoralizing for me at that point was that sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you work or how much you're trying for something to happen, you may just never get the opportunity to or the chance to even do it. It's something that you just have to accept and move on with. Yeah. An action/act of service by a fellow trainee that left a deep impression. Of my mind, I think collectively I feel very, very empowered and touched by many of the trainees there, because before I went to China, I've always struggled with my self-confidence, and I've always thought of being stubborn, at this age, trying to pursue a career in this industry as something that is disadvantageous and something that is not respected. But when I went to China, the way all my peers were so encouraging and the way they looked at me with admiration for my stubbornness, it fuels me to feel like my determination, even at this age, is something that is positive rather than negative. So I think that is something that left a very, very deep impression in me. Yeah. So in the end of 6 months, I finally graduated from this show, and I came in 30th place in the show, which I am really thankful for and happy. And honestly, it's been such a rewarding experience, and one that I will definitely always remember and hold very close to my heart. I hope that I've managed to share some of the questions that you guys had and let you guys know a bit more of such show formats. There are actually a lot more things that I would love to share and questions that I would love to answer, but I think the video is getting a bit too long. So if you still have any questions or anything that I might have missed out in this video, please comment in the video so I can look at it and maybe do a part 2 where I just answer some of your questions. Yeah, that's it. Bye.